The government has just announced the biggest change to house buying in 20 years. We're going to go through what those changes are, but also what they're not telling us. On the 19th of June 2026, this very week, the government announced what they're calling the biggest reform to house buying and selling in a generation. I've read the full roadmap document, every single page of it, so that you don't have to. And what I found buried in it is very different to what the headlines are saying. In the next few minutes, I'm going to tell you exactly what's changing, which parts of the UK it applies to, when it's actually coming in, and what it means for you as a buyer, a seller, or as a property investor. Who this applies to. Before anything else, let me tell you who this actually affects, because this is an important detail the coverage has mostly skipped. These reforms apply to England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, but Scotland is not included, and there is a very good reason why. Scotland already has a version of what England is now trying to build. In Scotland, every seller must commission a home report before the property can even be listed. That includes an independent survey, an EPC, and a detailed property questionnaire. Buyers can download it before they even book a viewing. The contract, called missives, becomes legally binding much earlier in the process than in England. There's no subject to contract limbo that lasts for months, and the average completion time in Scotland is just 6 to 8 weeks. Compare that to England's current average of 17 weeks. Scotland figured this out in 2008 when they introduced the home report system. England is only now catching up in 2026. 18 years later. The reforms, what they actually are. So here's what the government has announced. 6 main changes, and I will go through each one and tell you exactly what problem it solves and what the current system looks like without it. Reform number 1, sales packs. Right now, nearly 1 in 4 property sales in England fall through before completion. The number 1 reason, survey issues. Things found during the inspection that should have been known before the offer was made. Damp, structural defects, planning restrictions, boundary disputes, information that exists but is not shared until month 3. The sales pack reform says that all of that information has to be ready before the property goes on the market. Things like title deeds, property searches, a condition report, leasehold details if applicable, EPCs, flood risks, building safety information, and chain status. All of it up front before the listing goes live. Now, I've read the full Annex B of the government's roadmap, and you can too, which sets out exactly what the sales pack should contain. And I want to be honest with you about one thing. It's very vague. The list includes tenure type, council tax bans, EPC ratings, title information, search results, a property questionnaire, and a condition report. But there's no mention of planning permission documents, no mention of certificate of lawfulness for HMOs, no mention of HMO licensing documents. For a property investor buying a property specifically to convert or operate it as a HMO, that's a significant gap, because those are exactly the type of documents that can take months to chase after an offer is accepted. Whether that detail gets added before legislation passes, we'll have to wait and see. But right now, the government's own definition of the sales pack does not cover everything investors need. Reform 2 is binding contracts. This is the reform that directly attacks gazumping and last-minute walkaways. Currently, either party can withdraw from a property deal at any point before exchange of contracts. No penalty, no consequence. Personally, I've placed offers on properties where I asked up front, do you have certificate of lawfulness, do you have planning permission, and I've been told yes. 2 months in, once I've paid the legal fees, I've paid my mortgage broker, the survey's been done. Actually, James, sorry, we don't have that now. No refund did I ever get on any of those costs, and that is the reality of the current broken system. Under this new proposal, once an offer is accepted, both parties enter a binding conditional contract much earlier into the process. Walk away without a legitimate reason and you pay a financial penalty. Legitimate exceptions include death or illness, newly discovered property information, major financial change, and chain collapse. But casual walkaways or sellers taking a higher offer 3 months in, those will finally get penalised. Now here's something important I want to fact check for you that I've seen inside the roadmap document from the government. The government does confirm that financial penalties will be based on a percentage of the property sale value and will reflect the stage at which the transaction fails. But the exact percentage has not been set yet. So I imagine that if you're going to pull out of a property sale earlier into the process, there will be a less penalty than, let's say, if you were 3 months down the line. The document specifically says that they will work with the industry to determine the most suitable penalty fee structure. So the principle is confirmed, the number just isn't yet. And I want to go one step further than what the government is already proposing. My view is that at the point an offer is accepted, both the buyer and the seller should each put forward 1% of the purchase price as a commitment deposit. Send that to each of the solicitors. On a £200,000 property, that's £2,000 each. If the buyer walks away without a legitimate reason, they lose their deposit to the seller. If the seller walks away or accepts a higher offer, they lose their deposit and it goes to the buyer. That's real commitment, and if you look at it, 1% is not so large that it stops genuine buyers from making offers, but it's large enough to make someone think very carefully before they pull out. For investors, this reform cannot come soon enough. Every failed deal costs survey fees, legal costs, broker fees, and weeks of time. Binding contracts with real financial consequences change the behaviour of every party in the transaction. Reform 3 is digital property logbooks. Every property gets a permanent digital record in these newly proposed plans, updated in real time and accessible to buyers, sellers, solicitors and surveyors throughout the entire transaction. No more solicitor, emailing managing agent who has a 6-week backlog or still recovering from COVID. The information is there, it's verified and instantly available. The Netherlands, for example, has had a version of this for decades through their land registry called the Cadastre. Every transaction, every ownership change, every mortgage has been registered in real time. Their average completion time? 6 to 8 weeks. Norway has invested in digitising their entire process and estimated savings up to £1.4 billion over 10 years just from removing the friction. England's current system is taking 17 weeks on average and costing the economy £1.5 billion per year in failed transactions alone. So the digital logbook is the foundation that makes everything else faster. Reform 4, AI in conveyancing. This one did not make the headlines, but it is in the document. The government has explicitly backed AI-assisted conveyancing. They have set up an AI growth lab launched on the 8th of June specifically for the legal services and conveyancing sector. The idea is to automate routine tasks such as document classification, data extraction, and AML check processing, whilst keeping human judgment for the decisions that matter. Right now, a conveyancer manually reviews documents that AI could triage in seconds. That manual process is part of why completions take 4 months. The AI Growth Lab will start accepting applications from conveyancing firms later this summer. This is genuinely an exciting step in the right direction which will help solicitors speed up the process. Reform 5, estate agent standards and mandatory qualifications. Estate agents get a lot of flack in the UK, and right now, within reason, anyone can become an estate agent in the UK. There's a few compliance things that you need to do, but in general, you don't need any qualifications. You can walk out of any job on a Friday and be listing someone's most valuable asset on a Monday. The government is now introducing a code of practice for estate agents, setting out minimum standards and is consulting on mandatory qualifications. Countries like the Netherlands, Germany and Australia all require licensed qualified agents. The UK is one of the last major economies where it is entirely unregulated. So this change is about time. Reform 6, streamlined AML checks. Anti-money laundering checks currently happen multiple times in a transaction. It's ridiculous. Your solicitor checks, the seller's solicitor checks, sometimes or most commonly the estate agent will check. It's the same information 3 separate times, adding weeks to the process. Under this newly proposed system, they will check it only once, share it, and then it's done. So how much will these reforms actually save us? Well, the government is estimating that the saved amount of time is approximately 4 weeks that it will shave off the house buying process. But in terms of numbers, they're estimating £650 in savings for the buyer. But honestly, it's a lot more than that, because the longer a house buying process drags on, the more costs a buyer will typically have to fork out. The first one would be a mortgage broker fee, which could be anywhere up to £1,000. Mortgage arrangement fees, again, could be up to £5,000, but that completely depends on the amount that you're borrowing. Additional survey costs could cost in the region of up to £1,500, and wasted legal fees if that sales fall through, again, up to £1,500. So as you can see, the cost savings are significantly more than the estimated £650 the government is estimating. Really quickly guys, I've noticed that some of you watching this video have not yet subscribed to the channel. If this kind of content is useful to you, me reading through the government documents so that you don't have to, keeping you updated on the latest UK property news, then please do hit that subscribe button. My promise to you is simple. I will keep making this content for free, and do it for my content manager Greg while you are there. He'll really appreciate it. The countries that are already doing this. I want to put some numbers on this because the UK government's own document references international comparisons and they are striking. I've split this into the following countries: Scotland, Netherlands, Norway and England as of today. If we're looking now at the average time to complete on a property sale, in Scotland 6 to 8 weeks, in the Netherlands around 3 weeks, Norway 4 weeks, but in England, as of today, 17 weeks. If we now compare the rate at which sales fall through in each of these countries, in Scotland, 1 in 12 sales fall through. In Netherlands, 1 in 10 sales, and that's partly due to the fact they have a 10% penalty to the buyer or the seller if one of them pulls out for no legitimate reason. And I'll take you back to what I proposed as having just a 1% penalty. Netherlands have taken that further with 10%, and you can see they're significantly better in terms of their lower rate of sales falling through. In Norway, fewer than 1 in 20 sales fall through. They have one of the lowest rates in Europe because legally binding bids and upfront information eliminate the late stage surprises that cause most collapses everywhere else. In England, 1 in 4 sales collapse. The leading cause is survey issues discovered after months of legal work and information that should have been available on day one. And finally, looking at the cost of failed sales. In Scotland, around £7 million per year. When a deal collapses, buyers and sellers typically lose between £2,700 and £3,456 each in unrecoverable legal costs, survey fees, and mortgage arrangement costs. In the Netherlands, failed sales are statistically negligible at macro level. The 10% contractual penalty that I mentioned and legally binding agreements mean the Dutch housing sector is highly liquid. In Norway, something interesting happens. If you walk away from a deal without good reason, you as the buyer pay for every penny of loss that you cause to the seller. That cost falls on you, not the market, not the economy, and not the taxpayer. In England, the cost of failed sales is approximately £400 million per year to buyers and sellers, and to the wider economy, it's an estimated £2 billion, so quite a significant difference to our close neighbours in Europe. But let me bring this even closer to home, because we already have proof that upfront information works right here in the UK. It's called an auction. When you buy a property at auction, the auctioneer compiles a legal pack in advance. That pack contains the title documents, the searches, the legal paperwork, all of it. Every bidder can read it before the auction day. That's partly why auction sales complete so quickly, sometimes 28 days, sometimes 56 days, because the information is already done. The due diligence is already complete, and you're not waiting for a solicitor to chase a managing agent 6 weeks down the line. The system the government is now proposing for the open market is essentially what auction buyers have had access to for years. And it works. Now they just need to make it standard for everyone. Here's the timeline, and here's what they're not telling you. Here's where I have to be straight with you, because the press coverage of this announcement has been overwhelmingly positive, and rightly so. The direction is right, I'm not disputing that, but I want to show you the exact timeline buried in the government's own roadmap document. This is a document published on the gov.uk website on the 19th of June 2026 by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. I've read it all, and here's what it actually says. Under the section titled Timeline for Reform, the government splits their commitments into 3 phases. Phase 1 is labelled Now, meaning 2026, and here is exactly what's happening now. The government will publish non-statutory guidance to improve the quality of information in property listings. Non-statutory means it is not law, it is only guidance. They will then identify sales pack information that can be voluntarily provided up front. Voluntarily, which means not required. They will then publish a non-statutory code of practice setting out minimum standards for property agents. Again, non-statutory, not enforceable by law. They will work with the industry to build preparedness for binding contracts. Again, the word used here was preparedness, not binding contracts themselves. So everything happening right now in 2026 is voluntary guidance. Nothing is mandatory yet. If you are buying or selling a property today, that means the process still works exactly the same as it did last week. Phase 2 is labelled Next, meaning 2027 to 2028. A consultation on mandatory qualifications for estate agents. A consultation means they will ask the industry what it thinks. That consultation will then need to be reviewed and acted on. An advisory charter for property professionals. Advisory means optional. A consultation on smart data scheme for the property sector, again, another consultation, and digital logbooks and sales packs will be encouraged, but again, not yet mandatory. Then phase 3 is labelled future, meaning by the end of Parliament. And here is the exact language used in the document for each of these sections. On sales packs, it says, when parliamentary time allows. On binding conditional contracts, they will only be introduced after sales packs are embedded, which means only after the sales pack legislation passes, which has no confirmed date yet. It also says when parliamentary time allows. So again, not giving us a specific timeline. And on the full digital framework, once again, when parliamentary time allows. And the digital geospatial land register, the tool that would make property information instantly accessible online in the way the Netherlands already have it, that's targeted for completion in 2035. That's 9 years away from now. I'm not making any of this up, I'm reading it directly from the government's published document. And I want to say something directly. The Rightmove CEO is quoted in this document supporting these reforms. Johan Svanstrom said this is an encouraging step towards a faster and more efficient property market. The Zoopla CEO is quoted supporting them. Paul Whitehead said that these proposed reforms change that. The Law Society, the RICS, the Building Societies Association, Lloyds Banking Group, Nationwide, Santander, every major industry body, every lender, all quoted, and they're all supporting these reforms. The government even ran a public consultation with 82% of respondents agreeing to the reforms and they were needed. 79% supported mandatory upfront property information, 72% supported binding contracts, so nobody thinks that this is a bad idea. Just do it. The government has built the case, the industry has agreed, the public has been consulted. The only thing standing between England and a system that Scotland has had since 2008 is political and parliamentary time. So my message to the government is simple, just get on with it. My personal position and where I sit on both sides of the fence. I want to be clear about where I sit in all of this because I'm not just a commentator on this system. I operate it in every day on both sides. I'm a property investor first and foremost, so I buy properties, and through James Property we also have an estate agency business where we sell properties. So I feel every part of this broken process from both ends. As a buyer, I've placed offers on properties and asked the fundamental due diligence questions up front. For example, do you have a certificate of lawfulness for this HMO? I've then been replied to with yes, of course we do. And then 2 months later, as I mentioned, the survey was done, legal fees paid, broker paid, and actually it turns out that, sorry Mr. Coupland, we don't have this in place. I was left with no refund, no compensation, and just wasted costs and time. That is the current broken system that we have, and it happens constantly. I'm sure it's happened to one of you guys watching this also. Whereas if we then look at someone who also sells property, I also know how frustrating it is when a buyer pulls out at the last minute for no reason that couldn't have been identified in week 1. Sales packs would fix the buyer problem, binding contracts would fix the seller problem. So both are needed, both are obvious, both seem years away from being implemented. And that's what the headlines are not telling you. The leasehold angle. One more thing worth mentioning, buried in the document and barely reported on. If you own leasehold property and you've ever tried to sell it, you will know that it can be a nightmare. You'll need information from your freeholder or managing agent to complete the sale. They can take months to respond and charge hundreds of pounds for the privilege. Under this newly proposed government roadmap, using powers already granted by the Leasehold and Freehold Reform Act in 2024, the government is going to cap the fees and cap the response times for these information requests, which is great news. For anyone holding leasehold investment properties, particularly flats, this is a meaningful change. It does not arrive immediately. The consultation on the secondary legislation is next year, but it is coming. The honest summary. So, here is the honest version of this story. The government has announced the right reforms: sale packs, binding contracts, digital systems, AI conveyancing, estate agent qualifications. Every one of these is the right answer to a genuinely broken system. Scotland proved it works in 2008. The Netherlands and Norway proved it works even faster with fully digital infrastructure. England has 120-day completions, nearly 1 in 4 deals fall through, and £1.5 billion a year wasted. The industry supports the reforms, the public supports the reforms, the big banks support the reforms, but what is happening today, unfortunately, is still only guidance and not law. And it looks like it's going to take unnecessary years to implement. So my message to the government is simple: You've done the consultations, you've got the industry on board, you've got the evidence from the countries that already do this well, so stop consulting and start legislating. If you want help navigating the current system while we wait for it to change, whether that's finding the right finance structure, sourcing the right deals, or getting your first property purchase right from the start, then the team at James Property University and James Property Mortgages can help with the finance side, and our fast track service is for investors who want to move with the right team around them, which is our full end-to-end service to secure your next property in 90 days. You can find all the links below this video. If this video was useful, and I hope it was, please like it and subscribe to the channel. It costs you nothing and it helps us keep making free content like this. And if you know someone who's buying or selling a property right now and navigating this broken system, then share this video with them. Drop a comment below if you have questions about anything that we've discussed today. I read and reply to everyone, but that's all for now, and I'll see you in the next one.